Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show, Links with Friends. And we're here with government and security links with friends here on May 9th. Did I say May 9th already? I don't remember. Anyway, you should show them your water bottle that you were showing us before.
It's going to be a short one.
Yeah, it's a very short episode. Oh my gosh. That is the size of my compost bin that I keep in my kitchen.
1 gallon, double walled. Since I've bought it, there's never not been ice in it.
You should take a drink of that so they can see how you have to like hold it like a child.
The handle is on the lever, so you can't. There's no way to one hand this. I don't have the strength to if I could. So you gotta.
It's like a child, like holding a giant sippy cup.
I prefer to think of myself as a hamster when I'm doing that.
You store some for later in your cheeks.
But so you just have to fill it up once a day.
Yeah.
And you can drink your daily gallon of water. Actually, it's less than a gallon because it's got ice in there, but probably 3/4.
Yeah, it's still pretty good. More than I'm drinking.
Delicious and cold at all times. Why is everybody not doing this?
Because you maybe need like some upper arm strength
You
to
can build your upper arm strength while you're at it.
become world's strongest man.
Plus, you can keep upgrading the size of your jug to get stronger as you go. They get pricey at that size, though.
Yeah.
Well, you know who I bet doesn't carry around a cool water bottle? Joe Biden. I bet.
He's probably got staff who do that for
Yeah, they
him.
probably just hand him like a saucer and a teacup of lukewarm water whenever he needs. It's like, Joe,
Room temperature.
with your health conditions, we can't give you cold water. I'm sorry. But the White House does have some plans for AI. They are nebulous, but they did make one big change that is terrifying.
The White House pushes tech CEOs to limit risks of AI. How? By appointing
When?
Kamala Harris as
You've jumped the gun. That's the one bad decision that cannot possibly.
the White House shocker. She's going to be the new AI czar? What?
I like that they don't actually tell you in the headline. It's just new ... because they want you to click that
Well,
link.
she'll finally be able to put that computer science degree to use. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Do you think that, let's say that we took, there's no standard yet, I guess, but if we took, let's say we take Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, all of their hiring questionnaires that you have to pass to get past the first stage of hiring, could she pass any of those?
No.
Could she score more than 10% on any of
No.
those? Then why is she in charge?
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
the only real point in her favor is that she's younger compared to a lot of other Congress critters. But
have you
that's
heard
not
her-
the only qualification you need to be able to make decisions about that.
What was her one great quote was like, they said, what are you going to do about such and such problems? She's like, well, what we're going to do is what we have been doing, and we've been doing it.
All right. That's some good, like, political speak, just right around the question.
Not even a circle.
Yeah.
One thing they did say was that if your company makes a mistake and the answer is because AI, that's not going to fly. They're still going to fine you.
Yeah. That's it. Well, we've heard a little bit more concrete steps from the FTC,
Yeah.
but this is from the White House, and they had no details at all.
Yeah, it's really worrying too, because there's an upheaval too among nerds, like, well-known or well-respected nerds in a lot of circles. There's one camp that's saying we should use nuclear weapons to stop the proliferation of GPUs, in essence. And then there's another group saying if we put any kind of restrictions on this, we only hurt ourselves economically. See also the United Kingdom.
When you say nuclear weapons, it sounds like you're saying, let's launch nukes to stop the AI, but you're saying let's use the framework, right?
No, it literally, one of his things was if a sanctioned company is importing GPUs and doing a unsanctioned AI research, that is a nuclear event. We could do nuclear. That is enough of an escalation that nuclear retaliation would be on the table.
Who said that? Was that the Google guy?
No, Eliezer Yudkowsky.
Well, that person is an idiot. Let's not let them make any decisions from this point forward.
Are they also an AI czar?
It's like we must stop them. He's tried to walk that back somewhat because people point out the insanity of that, but he did say basically that.
But he got clicks, didn't he?
He did.
He did.
Got his name out there.
We didn't know who he was before.
What we've learned from Musk and Wozniak is a lot of these tech bros are just black holes of attention. And they'll say whatever they got to say to stay in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So
Who
That
wants
could
to
be
be
dangerous,
perceived?
though.
Like, I don't understand it.
Some people are desperate for it. Some people that don't want to be perceived quite as much, though, are those people who are suffering under the proctorio type regimes at a lot of these companies. And the White House has also weighed in on that.
The White House to study employer tools that monitor workers. There is a tiny light at the end of the tunnel. It may be the oncoming train, but the light at the end of the tunnel of this was, hey, we're starting to notice that these employer tools are actually turning into tools of oppression. So like historically protected groups that there are federal laws to have protections from are still protected. So like, let's say you have an employer tool and it's like, Bob, we're noticing that when we ask you to move around the building, it's taking you a lot of time and that's not acceptable. And it's like, and Bob's in a wheelchair. It's like, oh, it turns out that is actually acceptable.
He needs to get his wheelchair censored. If we can't measure
gotta
your
speed that
steps-
up.
Yeah, if we can't measure your steps, we have to measure your rotations.
It's like, Bob can get the work done. We have to have reasonable accommodations for Bob. And the employers are like, there's not really a checkbox in Proctorio where we can say reasonable accommodations.
Also, when the White House tells us that something is becoming horribly oppressive, because it is the White House, there's that unspoken, and we should know.
How long do you think it would take? Because I always think about the VCR rules. It's like this crazy invasion of privacy was trying to happen in the 70s. And then some Congress critters VHS rental records, which were as, purient as you might imagine, were leaked. And then all of a sudden we have better privacy laws because some Congress critters VHS rental records were published.
Are you suggesting our audience make sure that Congress Critters records are published somewhere?
Well, it was more like, how long do you think it would take for us to get a federal law if they went to work at an Amazon warehouse just for a couple of days? It's like, you got to wear the wrist monitor. And it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mitch, you didn't have enough picks per hour.
Do you think Mitch McConnell is currently in communication with an OpenAI cat girl? If we could get those laws.
Hatsune Miku.
I think that would probably have the opposite effect. They would probably start breaking down tariffs and regulations. Like, yes, more cat girls, whatever leads us to more cat girls in the economy.
Mitch needs an entire harem. Well, remember the SolarWinds hack? Once again, I love looking back at these old crises, and it's like, God, we had it so good.
Remember the Australian wildfires?
The world was so much simpler back when this was all we had to worry about. But we find out that, when the government swooped in and they were like, oh my God, something must be done. Well, that was a little bit false because they already knew.
The DOJ detected the SolarWinds hack 6 months earlier than they first reported. And this is interesting because they didn't warn the company, but they sort of knew what was going on internally. It's like, let's just wait and see what happens. That was a worse result than letting them know.
Do you think they do that often though? Like just
Yeah.
to see
Every day.
what's happening?
Yeah.
Like figure out what their methods are?
And to control it before,
Yeah.
to manage the spin, make sure everybody's covered.
No, there isn't. Go ahead.
Well, insanely, they had a demo. And they were running the demo on one of the DOJ servers. And they were like, that's weird. Look what connections this is making externally. And they contacted the provider and they're like, yeah, we're not sure. And they said, oh okay, well, we're going to buy it anyway.
Yeah.
And then for 6 months, they were infiltrated.
I think that's the much more interesting aspect of this that not a lot of outlets are covering, in that a lot of software companies that have stuff in Amazon, I think in this case it was specifically they were connecting to Amazon resources, but they were connecting to Amazon resources that didn't belong to the SolarWinds company. And then there were further outbound connections on top of that. And so a lot of these software companies say, oh, you're going to need to whitelist AmazonAWS.com, start at AmazonAWS.com. And spoiler alert, the bad guys have credit cards too and can buy Amazon cloud services. Just because the traffic comes from Amazon doesn't mean it's trustworthy.
Yeah, man, you say that to the powers that be, and they're going to be like, I see what you're saying. We need central bank digital currency so we can stop that. I've got it. Good idea, Wendell. And then
Also,
They would say Wandle.
We
They
need a
would
copy of your
mispronounce
health
his name.
records.
And this Washington is not the same Washington. This is Washington State, not Washington, D.C. And once again, the states are passing the laws that D.C. won't.
Washington passes law requiring consent before companies collect health data. Companies will continue to ignore these kinds of requirements because your insurance company really wants this data and they're not going to take no for an answer. Also, your regular insurance company wants to know this kind of thing too.
Now, they do have some pretty good bullet points here. It has to be like obvious as you're signing up. You get the box that says, don't do this. There can't be any dark patterns. They can't opt you in automatically. It seems like they got a pretty good framework here. I don't know if in practice anything good will happen.
It'd be nice if all states had that, but
I would like that for not only my health data, but also for my financial data. Be great.
Oh yeah, your insurer should not be able to ask about your financial information. That seems like a problem.
And the FTC is once again striking out at social media companies. This seems like a pretty good idea, although the social media companies will combat this desperately because how do you indoctrinate? You must get them as young as possible.
The FTC proposes barring Meta from monetizing kids' data.
I thought we already had laws about this, but maybe not.
This is a terrible headline because there was an agreement that the FTC made with Meta 2017, 2018. And the FTC said, hey, we would like an independent auditor to audit if you're complying with the thing that we already mutually agreed to in the past. And Meta's kind of throwing a fit about the third-party audit. And so I read this article, and it's like, Meta's acting really badly. This is really bad. But then you dig into it, and it's maybe not as bad as it seems. Meta's argument mainly seems to be, we don't want to monetize children's data any more than Hanna-Barbera was monetizing children for the purposes of selling He-Man toys.
But they were found to fail the 2020 audit.
Yeah.
So they are doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but not any worse than the Hanna-Barbera.
So you agree with the argument? It's like, yeah, but what about them? That's the ultimate whataboutism. How can we accept that?
They're going to do it anyway.
We should set a precedent with Meta and then go after all the others.
Like Walmart is doing it worse than Meta at this point.
You know what I bet would stop the big tech companies, or at least give them pause? If we gave Mark Zuckerberg a little Jack Ma treatment. Maybe he just disappears.
Isn't Jack Ma, didn't he turn up again? He's like teaching somewhere.
Yeah, and he's splitting up the company.
After he agreed to break it all up.
Right.
And basically not compete with the central bank digital currency
He's
anymore.
just like, I've got enough money. I'm going to retire. I'm going to enjoy life while I'm still living.
Which is admirable, but I don't think that was his choice.
I wonder how much do you think he could realistically get out of that country? Could he get 100 million of that out of the country?
Oh, yeah, easy.
If I were him, I would get 100 million out and I would just go live in America.
Yeah.
Or Europe or wherever.
I'm sure that he could make one call on a red telephone. They would get him out and he would be set for life. And it would be reasonable, but he would just be, it would be the same situation, just a different team.
You got to worry about those like CCP guys that come and establish their own police stations and stuff, though.
Yeah.
And you got to worry about all of your relatives back in that.
Yeah.
That would suck. The Ma family would not. It wouldn't be good for them.
And it's like, what do you want with me? And it's like, you're his second cousin's roommate's sister's twice removed. I don't even know.
And we got the TikTok bans. The states are now still, they're doing their own thing. Here's the worst kind of states doing it because DC won't. And the fact that they pushed a bill through and went to the governor. The governor said, I want changes. And he's sent it back with the changes, basically saying, if you make these changes, I will sign it. But his changes are a little too broad.
Montana governor's changes to TikTok bill, the ban bill, would ban all social media entirely. Whoops. The governor rightly recognized this bill calls out TikTok specifically, which won't fly under federal law.
But the crazy thing about it is the amendments he made to try to narrow it down to the point where it would apply to TikTok just based on what they do, amazingly, also applies to all other social media because they're all doing it.
Do you think he's a big Facebook user?
Probably uses it for his campaign and such, right?
Yeah. Twitter, probably.
The marketplace. Actually, if you're that rich, you probably don't use marketplace. You don't buy secondhand.
Because old people vote, and old people are on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
If the emails that NPR published from Elon Musk are real, it was unhinged. It read like just unhinged ramblings.
We've seen plenty of unhinged behavior from that man.
Have you seen, I don't know, maybe we'll talk about this in the social media. There was a bracket going around that was like the worst thing Elon's done since he acquired Twitter. And then like people were voting to get like to the final one.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Colorado is really going crazy with some pro-consumer laws. And I don't know what's going on there, but whatever they're doing, it seems to be the right thing to do.
Colorado kills law that made it harder for cities to offer internet service. State law forced cities and towns to hold elections before offering broadband.
Who wrote that legislation, I wonder?
Yeah, it turns out that not only did they write it, but they got it in place in most other states. So this is an outlier. The reason that Colorado did this is because they did start having those elections, and a crazy number, the vast majority of their counties voted to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a moot law. And we rarely retract them after they turn out to be stupid, but congratulations for Colorado.
We're just out here killing it every week.
I think we covered this in the original context of this. This law was meant to dovetail with a federal law. The whole point of that law was to just slow things down. The incumbent ISPs knew that they would never, because everybody knows your ISP is awful, awful, awful. But the federal law was meant to say that you can't spend any state or taxpayer money, even if they vote to, on competing with a private business. You see, the 1-2 punch is like you get the states and that. But that level of evil is just, that's something we have to be cognizant of. That's why you watch this program, is like, look out for that, because there's an unseen hand that's pitting two sides against one another to slow everything down and make nothing happen.
I think it's pretty visible.
Yeah.
I feel it. Boy, am I feeling the hand.
Most people aren't.
I'm feeling that index finger.
Up your nose, right?
Sometimes. And there is currently not any major government crisis that we need to divide your attention away from. So no one cares about this.
U.S. tracking balloon that was spotted off the coast of Hawaii. They're not taking any action because it hasn't flown over anything yet.
We shot down some that weren't really over anything. Remember that?
Yeah. Mm.
And Utah has followed up with a long line of stupid governments who thought that there was some way to actually do this. There's not.
There's an adult website whose name is definitely flagged that has decided to block all of its content from Utah. And instead, you get a video from someone that says, "Hey, hello, it looks like you're coming in from Utah. Yeah, your legislators passed a law that is going to require us to do things that we think is bad, so we're not going to let you see anything."
It's unfortunate. And that leads to some angry people and some desperate
Look
people.
at the color on this map.
Yeah, and wait till you see the comparison with the previous map. But people immediately, they didn't see this coming. This is what happens when you don't watch this show. You don't know what's coming. It'll catch you off guard, and you have to scramble to get a new service.
Searches for VPN soar in Utah amidst blockage. Google search volume for VPN, May 2nd, 2023.
So let's compare this. Look at that, as Kristen points out, the dark blue color, which is actually the top of the chart, obviously.
I like that
off the
Virginia's
scale.
kind of dark too, which I assume is called DC.
So in all of March, for example,
Mostly Virginia. That's
what happened in
interesting.
Virginia in March that they needed VPNs?
I was just thinking DC, like government
Maybe.
folks, maybe. Yeah.
Tough.
Funny though.
Tough for the people of Utah. They point out that this will simply push it to websites that don't care enough to worry about this.
Yeah.
And then you lose all those controls, because like even that site had deleted a lot of stuff that they figured was not from the original person in the video.
Yeah. This is also a slippery slope for another reason, in that lawmakers will see this and say to themselves, wait a minute, if you know I'm coming from Utah, let's use that for other more darker things. It's just like, great.
If you think that is stupid, just look at what the UK did, which is to apply that to essentially the entire internet, or at least most of the bigger sites. And one of the biggest sites has said, yeah, if you want to ban us, but we're not doing it.
Wikipedia will not perform online safety bill age checks in the UK.
They can be fined, but
We're going to see a lot more banners on the top of Wikipedia.
well, if they pull out of the country entirely, they'll probably just ignore those fines, right? I mean, we really will see the UK just go dark in terms of the online encyclopedia.
Did anybody do anything insane, like try to fine Encyclopedia Britannica for something that was published in the encyclopedia?
I'm sure someone who's a historian could tell us.
The big question is, who owns Britkipedia.com? You might see a little
Should be
payday.
us.
And the EU is also setting up some draconian rules, this time about AI. Now, Do we need these? It seems like maybe we should have some AI controls because it's getting crazy out there. But should we trust the government to be able to do it for us? A lot of people are speaking out that they're doing too much or the wrong things.
EU urged to protect grassroots AI research or risk losing out to the US. Basically, it's saying, hey, let's not do any regulation right now because nobody else is, and we'll lose out, which is what happened with Brexit.
See, this is why I thought that you were talking about like just the structure of the arms race.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really is an arms race, right?
Yeah.
It would probably be better if nobody did this. But as long as one country is doing this, we all have to do this.
Yeah. And even if we all agreed not to do this, chances are we're still secretly doing it
Yeah.
somewhere.
I mean, it really is just like the nuclear
Yeah.
It's
analogy.
the prisoner's dilemma, and one of the prisoners is Xi Jinping. That tells you all you need to know.
Are you saying he got his hand stuck in the honeypot?
I'm saying he's going to do whatever he's going to do to enrich himself and protect himself. And Italy was the first country to come out and say, listen, we don't want anything to do with your stupid AI. But they specifically didn't like the fact that there was that leak where OpenAI was leaking other people's information. And in a very rapid turnaround, OpenAI said, don't worry, bro, we fixed everything.
OpenAI, ChatGPT back in Italy after meeting watchdog demands.
Maybe a little premature, considering some of the other stories.
I wish they'd give me a bullet point, but they don't. Basically, they've made changes to fix very specific issues, nothing to do with the existential threat that is AI. But hopefully it won't leak your payment details again. And AI generated images are everywhere. How do you know? You don't. It's hard
We
to
could be
tell.
AI generated right now. That's why we're not showing you our hands. Actually, yours is on the table. Maybe you've got 6 fingers and they just can't tell.
But you should be careful about how you apply it because little details people can pick up on. And when you are advertising something like, I don't know, war crimes or refugees or something like that, it's a bad look to fake them.
Amnesty International criticized for using AI generated images.
So this image right here, totally fake. Never happened.
It does kind of have like a uncanny valley to it a little bit.
So they pointed out this flag, correct colors, but in the wrong order. Also, these police uniforms haven't been used in a long time in that country. So it did a good job of putting this image together, obviously, but it just got some tiny things wrong.
I feel like the faces are a little too smooth.
They mentioned that as well. There's something
Yeah.
about the faces that make it feel more dystopian.
Yeah, it feels like it's been airbrushed, which is odd when you're going for like war photography because you usually want that to look more gritty.
Yeah. So, I mean, why wouldn't you just use actual footage? Because I'm sure
Clearly
there's
have it,
plenty.
yeah.
It's weird. And China has been locked out of AI, or so we were told. It turns out that lock was not so much a lock, it was more like a baby gate. And guess what? They're big and strong now.
China's AI industry has barely slowed down, even with U.S. chip export rules.
They just kicked the gate over.
They jumped over it and got hung on the top a little bit. Cats do that all the time. It's hilarious. So it's actually just the performance of the chip. And these guys did the math. They believe, Reuters believes that it's something like 2-to-1. So what would be a $100,000 data center is now a $200,000 data center. But CCP doesn't really care too much about that, it seems. It's motorcycle season.
It is. I don't know that they can hear that one. It's not too loud yet.
He's not cranking it very much.
No.
He did one. That's a respectable motorcycle driver.
Something is wrong with my neighbor's truck because he's just outside gunning it randomly all the time, and I don't know why.
Maybe he's just doing that to feel better.
Maybe, well, he had the hood up, so I assume he was testing something, but I was like, that is the most obnoxious sound.
He's testing how long it will take you to complain if he sits in his
I'm
driveway.
gonna put a creepy old doll in his car when he's not looking
What will that do?
to scare him.
That's the worst solution to that problem. Well, Zimbabwe, if you think inflation is bad in your country, it's real bad in Zimbabwe.
It's only 5 billion%. It's fine.
Well, that was the last time. It hasn't hit there yet this time around. They're trying to get in front of it.
Zimbabwe plans to launch a digital currency backed by gold. It seems like a good idea on paper, but in reality,
So why not just back it by the central bank like everybody else does? Because nobody trusts the Zimbabwe central bank. The same way you shouldn't trust any other central bank. Having a real asset backing it is actually a good idea. I don't know that I trust them to be good custodians of my gold.
No, yeah, not even a little.
this is not gold, it's tungsten. What have you done?
This is fool's gold.
And Dallas, boy, it's been a while since we had a big juicy ransomware, huh? But this one hit hard.
Ransomware attack forces Dallas to shut down courts and disrupt some of their 911 services.
Which begs the question of, remember the last time this happened to a 911 service? Why didn't we scale back so that it still works without constant uplink?
Some aspects of this that are really good is that if the current Cold Wars that we're involved in become hot wars, all of these ransomware attacks hopefully will harden our infrastructure to be able to deal with more direct attacks.
Or
Yeah, they'll definitely invest in that before it happens.
like Ukraine, they'll hit a massive wave of ransomware attacks to try to cripple us before the initial assault. They aren't very good at it, but I think China might be better.
It does seem like that, doesn't it?
And we're pretty ripe for the picking because, oh boy, are all of our corporations terrible at that. Remember the Elasticsearch plague?
Yeah.
And the AWS plague where it was just like, this is not a hack. They didn't set it up correctly. Well, maybe we should start building products that are a little more robust against that.
Many public Salesforce sites are leaking private data. Salesforce community websites.
Many of which are healthcare. So by default, this is on. It allows guest access so that they can go and just guest access the record that was put in about you and your medical data. It shouldn't be like that. They just don't know any better.
Ugh.
You know what they should do? They should hire Kamala Harris to help them with their cybersecurity.
She focuses in AI.
Yeah, this doesn't fall under the AI purview. She needs to GTFO. That's what they'll say.
You think she doesn't have time for both? She's busy. And who knew that a job at the U.S. Postal Service was so in demand?
I think I don't know if that's still the case, but I think they have pretty good benefits.
Yeah, full federal benefits and $72,000. That's probably not starting pay, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but maybe.
Although with the inflationary holocaust, maybe that's more normal. I shouldn't have said that word.
Nah, good job, thanks.
But people do want them, and they're actually willing to pay for it, which is not smart.
Promising jobs with the U.S. Postal Service, U.S. Job Services, leaks customer data. Whoops.
So this is not the Postal Service leaking data. This is a website that was kind of pretending to be the Postal Service who would offer you to help you get a job at the Postal Service. That appears to be a scam.
Yeah.
But they did take credit card payments. You did have to pay for this service. So now they've lost that entire list of credit cards.
And somehow this affected 900,000 postal customers.
It's wild. Do you think they had 900,000 people trying to get in?
No, I don't know where that could have come from.
Look at their little alternate logo that carefully doesn't actually use the real anything. Also, do we have postal workers on Segways anywhere in this country?
Maybe in a city. Around here, like at least around where I live, like the postal worker is just a person in a car. Like it's not a mail truck at all.
I have seen there's an e-scooter that'll pull this little mail basket thing, which is pretty genius.
Probably you need that for this kind of area. But yeah, it's just an SUV with a little light on top of it in most rural places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been drafted. And T-Mobile, they had a data breach. This one, when you get to reading into it, it's very small in scope, but wide in the scale of what they lost. So very few people, but they got everything.
T-Mobile discloses second data breach of 2023. This one leaking account pins and more. So 836 subscribers. They basically got literally everything.
Hope you're not one of the. It's kind of like winning the lottery. Huh? How many total T-Mobile subscribers are there?
A lot.
Are there? You think? I don't know. I don't know anybody on T-Mobile. I don't think.
You got to have better odds. Or the odds would be probably like one of the more high dollar scratcher tickets, right? Yeah. That kind of odds. Congratulations, you've won the identity theft lottery. And remember when Uber got in all that trouble with their data breach and we found out about it? And much like the SolarWinds data breach, they hid the fact for how long did they hide it? It was a long time.
It was a long time, yeah.
So do you think that maybe someone in the government will now get this eventually?
No.
Something tells me no.
Ex-Uber security chief gets probation for concealing a 2016 data breach. We've been continuously surprised that the Uber security chief got any punishment at all, and it ultimately turned out almost 10 years later, not so much.
Do you think the ex-Uber security chief, like, he goes out and his friends are like wanting to do something reckless? He's like, oh, dude, I can't. My probation officer.
Probably.
He probably never even talks to his probation officer.
Probably not.
This would be really annoying having to deal with this for almost a decade, though. More than 5 years. Just
Oh, don't. Well, 2016, not long ago.
he sort of played cowboy when the original break-in was like, all right, you got us. You know, don't say anything. This is going to hurt our stock price. And they're like, we want a lot of money for that. He's like, all right, fine, whatever. Turns out you can't do that. You're basically colluding with the criminals at that point.
But you can do that
Yeah.
because there was never any real punishment for it.
Yeah.
It's like a parking ticket. You can do it if you've got the money.
Well, and a lot of other companies have done exactly that and gotten away with it.
And the government
Yeah.
have gotten away with it. Which is weird because now we have those laws. Shouldn't we be able to retroactively apply the notification laws to our own government
Like
who
you
came
have-
up with that law?
You have to disclose this. And it's like, what do we do? Wait, we do? Yeah,
Wait
we
a
do.
minute. Maybe you don't understand that we're above the laws that we make. Did we not make that clear?
Does seem like that sometimes, doesn't it? What have we got for
Most
tomorrow?
times.
Tomorrow we got, the usual business and security. Or, well, no, this was security. It'll be business and social. Very little social. But
Business collapse
Some
as
business.
usual.
it was a big earnings week, and we assume that's why the news was, or the stories to share with your friends were a bit lackluster.
Yeah. So if you found this episode a little short, don't worry. The business section is going to make up for it.
We'll see you
Fun
guys
times.
then.
Thanks for watching. Update, engage, comment, whatever.
We appreciate it. Bye.